Welcome back to Arise Prime Time. And I have a guest commentator with me for the rest of the program who will be giving his thoughts on the news and issues of the day. And he is the current affairs analyst and professor of communications at Baze University in Abuja. He's Professor Abiodun Adeniyi. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Good to see you.
I know I'm not supposed to be biased, but waking up to the news of Dangote refinery finally producing petrol was like Christmas come early for me as a Nigerian, 28 years after. That was almost dampened when I left my house to get to work today and realized I didn't have enough petrol. Believe me, I had to patronize what we call black markets in Nigeria just to get to work. It was that bad. The queues are unending, and then the price, the NNPC increasing or not. As a Nigerian, Professor Adeniyi, I mean, what has today been like for you? What's your response to today? Dangote on the one side, and of course, this petrol queues that will not go anywhere.
Well, two different areas there, from the bigger one to the smaller one. And of course, we'll be happier by the time we're able to find a compromise between the two. Cherry news, no doubt, so it was well placed that you were happy, like the average Nigerian. Every patriotic citizen should be happy with what the legendary Dangote has done. Of course, it also demonstrates the ability of the private sector to define narratives in every economy against the background of the many things we've been facing in the public sector, you know, where it's been downward slide. Most things have been going south over the years. So if we're having an investor coming in from the private sector and trying to redefine the process, it's quite scary. But the prayer now should be that other microeconomic forces, you know, would not prevent stability and sustainability. And this can come in different ways. In the last few months, we've had stories, a lot of back and forth about how the systems or elements within the system have been trying to discourage him, you know, by putting, a spanner in his wheel. We just hope that will not happen. We just hope that the system will support him, even if they're not necessarily favoring him. He is probably ready to be competitive. He's a private businessman. He's been in competition over the years. But at least, you know, the environment, you know, should be made reasonably suitable, you know, so that the industry can be more sustainable, as the case could be.
You know, when I saw the bottle containing the petrol at the Dangote refinery, it looked so white. Somebody actually made a joke that it looked like spirit, alcohol. It was so clear. And then I'm beginning to wonder, what we've been putting into our vehicles and our generators over the years. So when Alhaji Aliko Dangote says our cars will live longer, our engines will live longer, I say amen to that, and we can see the quality of the petrol. But I also want to bring in the question about the minimum wage that has just been passed a couple of months ago. I recall that conversation why Labour had to settle for 70,000 naira. They, at the time, said they were looking at the macroeconomic situation in the country and that the president gave them an offer. He could increase the minimum wage, but he was also going to increase the price of petrol to get that. So they settled for 70,000 naira so that price of petrol would not be increased. But here we are. I mean, how do you think that Labour should be reacting? And 70,000 naira minimum wage with these increases we're seeing everywhere?
I want to believe the present increase we are witnessing is artificial. There are so many problems that have arisen in recent time. You know, our inability to pay foreign partners who are responsible for the refining of the fuel, the crude that we export for refining before they bring it down here, you know. And of course, we've had arguments around the season that we are in. But cherry news are coming, you know, in torrents. You know, we're having a slew of good news. One is that the public refineries are going to be up and running in not too long a time. Dangote refinery is also there. We can only hope that maybe in the next few days or next few weeks, there will be reprieve. And if there is reprieve, of course, it should affect positively the price of the pump price of fuel, and maybe we can have some level of stability again. Then the controversy around minimum wage will also, you know, will also be resolved possibly.
Interesting. Let's go to China very quickly. Beijing. President Tinubu met with his counterpart today. 5 MOUs were signed. Are we deepening this relationship, or are we over-reliant on China? Chinese investment is the debt trap diplomacy, as some will call it. What's your take?
But you see, our relationship with China, it's one of sadness and joy. You know, in the 60s, we had par at the level of development with this country. But yes, they have overtaken us alongside countries in Asia and the South Pacific, Malaysia, Singapore, South Korea, and all of that, and even Japan to some extent. But here we are, yes, and that's why we are trying to see how they can help us. But in trying to see how we can help us, we also be mindful. We have benefited, no doubt, at the level of infrastructure, at their expertise and all of that, and it's also continuing. But there's a whole lot of difference between how China, for instance, will want to help us and how the average country in a Western society will want to help us, you know, because their worldviews are different. You know, before now, we've been closer to Western countries much more than countries in the Far East, including China. In the case of China, ideologically, they are communists, like one of your resource persons said. They are communists. It's a closed culture. They are not democratic. But again, they have developed irrespective of their non-democratic characterization. That is probably also going to affect how they relate with us. And I do not see, yes, you pointed it out in the way you questioned your guests. You know, I saw it very clearly. There's not going to be any level of parity or balancing. From what we have seen in recent times in the relationship in Africa, they can be very ruthless and merciless, you know. They are doing it in Zambia, and to some extent, one of their companies is also doing it to us with the seizure of our public properties, embarrassing us.
Including our presidential jets.
Embarrassing us all over the world. So I think it's a kind of country we should dine with a long spoon. And perhaps we should also look further inwards, you know. What more can we do for ourselves rather than continuously externalizing our hope, such that we do not make a distinction between the country that we want to deal with and those that we will deal with. It's okay if we partner with them at different levels, like the president is pursuing. Yes, we know even the trip that he has gone to beyond China. Yes. You know, there are other partners that are also there, international development partners, mass around these kind of locations where events like this are happening. Our government can benefit from this trip, but China itself is not a country, it's a country that we should be mindful of. You know, we cannot totally depend on them, you know, if we want to be respectful of ourselves, our reputation, you know, and even though we know that we're in a world that is increasingly globalized, a decentered world, but that should not be taken too far at the expense of our pride and our sovereignty, which some of this partnership seeks to challenge.
What's your take on this aviation story about the FAA delisting Nigeria? I mean, this happened September 2022, but it's coming to the fore today, and people are asking questions.
Yeah, but I don't think it's something that should really get under our skin at this because we
our
are not
carriers not being able to fly directly to the US.
Yeah, we are not flying to the US, and they are saying because we have not taken advantage of that opportunity, that the fact that we belong to Category 1, according to their classification, they are taking us out of it. Perhaps they want to create a space for others who are ready, who can.
What does that say about us?
Well, it's just another symptom of the problem with our economy. You know, those days, of course, we know Arik was flying. Arik did a lot from what he said. They spent about $12 million trying to get into that Category 1, you know, after the Cape Town Convention, you know, but of course, Arik went on down, no thanks to AMCOM and all the problems that came with it. But again, from then on, we haven't seen any carrier, whether public or private, that can fit into that bracket to be able to fly to the US. And of course, the US authorities review some of these processes and procedures over time, and it has affected us. We're not flying, but they are under delisting us, so why should it worry us? Maybe it could only, at best, it could always make us to rethink our processes and, of course, make efforts to grow our economy, you know, which could rub off eventually on the aviation sector in the manner in which our airlines will now fit once more to belong to the Category 1 bracketing.
Indeed. Well, I'm no expert in the aviation sector, but one will wonder that
Yes.
the U.S. route is a lucrative route that we should be flying to. And we had the likes of Air Peace and United Air who were designated to travel the routes actually, but unfortunately this has happened. This is where we end our conversation for today. It's always a delight to have you on the show, Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, to help us wrap up and make sense of the stories of the day. Thank you so much. Well, that's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Do join us again tomorrow from me and the entire team here in Nigeria's capital of Abuja. Goodbye and thank you for watching.